gathered experts from 40 countries. It gives me today great pleasure to welcome Sri Ravi Shankar Prasad, Honorable Minister for Law and Justice, Communications and Electronics and Information Technology, a huge portfolio he holds, and a person who has been part of sci-fi ever since our second edition. He has never skipped a beat. He's always been here with us. Extremely indulgent to the Observer Research Foundation, has been a friend, philosopher, and guide to us. Sir, just by way of an introduction, we are conducting this edition of Sci-Fi in the midst of a very distinct upheaval in the relationship between technology, between us as individuals, and the societies we inhabit. You know, when the internet began, at its core lay the idea of an open, decentralized, in many ways a kind of nihilistic, anarchic space. And it was this wild, open landscape within which the individual was supposed to feel empowered, liberated, and autonomous. But then the wild, open landscapes of the internet started giving way to walled gardens, and the walled gardens started getting bigger and bigger. They started encroaching upon frontiers, they crossed frontiers, and as a reaction, frontiers started setting up, governments started setting up barriers, fortifications, and the other bastions started creeping up one by one. And today we are staring at the very distinct possibility of seeing an iron curtain being drawn across this space, threatening to split it into technospheres of influence, which is something which many of us are really dreading. Because we seem to be staring at a technology future that makes the threat of a splintered and divided World Wide Web very, very real in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So 6 years ago, when we curated our first edition of Sci-Fi, the cyber world by comparison seemed much simpler. We were going through the INR transition, and we were discussing, managing the infrastructure of the internet in a way that the World Wide Web could stay as it was. And we did make some progress. But since then, associated technologies with the cyberspace have come in the eye of a storm of major political, economic, social, and strategic upheavals. And we're still trying to grapple with those. In a world where information has always been power, every milestone in communications technology shortened what Ben Bagdikian called the information gap. The time between an event occurring and information about that event passing down. And the printing press speeded up the spread of knowledge and information, started molding public opinion in a way that nothing after it or before it had ever done until we came to the age of the radio and the television. And 50 years after that, 50 years after radio and television came up, digital technologies ended up completely eliminating the information gap, making information available almost instantaneously. And all these changes at every stage in communications technology did produce their own political and social upheavals. They caused cultures to change. They caused societies to change. Therefore, today, if there are contests around the principles of how this space should be governed at a time when information flow is instantaneous, I don't think we should be surprised. And sci-fi, in many ways, is a platform that actually tries to mimic the internet in its pristine prime. It is designed as a kind of platform which is owned and curated by multiple stakeholders. We have multiple partners. In many ways, we are not a directional platform. No, we actually, through misdirections, try to find direction out. Get a lot of debate going, get a lot of ideas going around the table from diverse groups of people, and then attempt to explore whether there is room in this space for a new dynamic, whereby a new digital collective can emerge from the thoughts which cascade around in this place. So the pillars around which this conference is designed, the 6 pillars, try to address some of the most important questions which will be addressed over the next 2 days. I'll briefly go through the questions. The first set of questions around how open societies manage risks arising from the manipulated flow of information, which is today designed to fragment the public sphere. Now, how do democracies, how do open societies grapple with this? How do we prevent misinformation from sabotaging democratic institutions? Second, we've seen advances in AI and machine learning. They promise immense advantages, not just for commerce, but also for our ability to ensure basic human needs of health, education, and access to all. But behind that promise, deep learning algorithms mirror the social biases and prejudices inherent in the humans who create them, codifying perpetually discrimination based on gender, race, or caste into AI systems. What processes need to be in place for the early detection and mitigation for these undesirable anomalies? Third, digital technologies have helped to resurrect, in many ways, many forgotten art forms, propelled many a local artist to instant stardom. They've connected them with the communities. They've enabled communities to reassert their cultural, normative, and intellectual identities. They've done all of that. But then how does one prevent at the same time a dominant set of platforms and formats steamrolling this multiplicity into uniformity by shaping our understanding of who we are and what we must aspire to be? Fourth, geotech has become the buzzword in strategic discourse. Will the hyphenation of emerging technologies with national security continue to exacerbate friction in the international system? And fifth, in this period of flux, how should states encourage interdependence of technological subsystems while guarding their sovereignty in managing the social consequences of all of this? And this is something which falls upon the states. They have to do it. So how do you bring stability in a world that is connected by technology but is self-serving by impulse? And finally, how does one conceptualize regulation and policymaking in a place as open as cyberspace? On one side, the scale and velocity of instantaneous information demands instantaneous attention. What new institutions of governance can respond effectively to this imperative? We really don't have any answers. And none of these, yes, have easy answers. But of the 130 experts from nearly 40 countries, including 10 cyber ambassadors and government representatives gathered in this room, there may be some who maybe hold the keys to some of these answers. But many more important, many more of them, many more of the minds in this room hold the knowledge that will help us uncover the nuances, the very different facets of these complex debates, which will lead us to a far deeper understanding over the issues facing us over these next 2 days. So to get these discussions underway, it's a great honor to have Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, the most appropriate speaker to kick off this forum. Sir, you spearhead this government's mission to build through digital India. To build through digital India, a new India, a society that is premised on inclusion, development, and social mobility for all. These efforts have deservedly landed you in the list of the world's 100 most influential people in the world of digital governance. And in these troubled digital times, it is always comforting to know that the country has in the Minister of Communication and Electronics and Information Technology a person who continues to actually remain extremely optimistic about our tech futures. He's extremely optimistic about the space, about technology, and continues to bring his immense experience as a minister and political leader of nearly 2 decades of service to the people. He brings to this task with a determination to create institutions and frameworks that are forward-looking and meant for the next generation to benefit from and build upon. Mr. Prasad, may I please invite you.